party, we like to party, party, party all night long. Party, party, we like to party, 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 never go home. Party, party, we like to party, party, party all night long. Party, party, we like to party, 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 never go home.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 15 of the Ball Talk Pod. We got a couple games to talk about as the Thunder just wrapped up their pre-All-Star break schedule in a not-so-great fashion. But since we last talked, the Thunder... Chris, remind me, is it just 2 games since we last talked?
We talked before the Heat game, yeah. I believe so. The Heat game...
Yeah, I think it was the Heat game.
What was before the Heat game?
That's what I'm looking up right now. For some reason, I think there's a game that I'm making up that's not actually there.
Let's see. I'm looking it up now. We played the Kings. That's not true. No. We played the Heat and the Pelicans. Did we talk? I think we didn't talk about the Pelicans.
No, we recorded Sunday night. Great podcasting.
And action. Hey guys, welcome to episode 15
of the Ball Talk Pod. Since we last talked, the Thunder have played 3 basketball games, 2 really fun ones and 1 not fun at all. Monday night, Thunder beat the Pelicans 137-101. It was Chet's second game back with the team. He's kind of playing every other right now, it feels like. But that was a blowout, like the definition of a blowout. Like the Pelicans don't care about basketball anymore.
That game was over in the first quarter.
I mean, the Thunder won by 36 points against a team that, like, I know Dejounte Murray is hurt. CJ McCollum didn't play, but, like, this team still had Trey Murphy, who's been playing, like really good recently. He's averaging, like, 23 a game over his last, like, 8 or 10.
Yeah.
Yusuf Misi's not a bad center, but Zion played. He doesn't care. Calling my shot. I think it's his last season in New Orleans. But
he did you see that today he was resting because of conditioning? The reason
before the All-Star break?
Today he was resting for conditioning.
Isn't that kind of backwards? You know what I mean? He's resting to get conditioned in shape.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it like that, for sure. It's just he is, and you could tell, like, during the game he was not in shape. They bring him in for like 3 minutes and take him out. He'd try to bully over somebody and get a terrible foul call. I mean, I can't imagine what's going through the ref's head every time he bowls his way into the chest of somebody. And they have to, I mean, I don't know, they have to call a foul because it looks bad. And sometimes they don't. And he just complains, throws up his hands, like, what the heck? But I don't know.
It's got to be frustrating to have Zion as, like, your guy. Like, we've had Shea and all that, you know, like, we're very blessed in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
But Zion just would be hard to, like, because you want to get behind him, but he's not giving you a ton of reasons right now. I think the story in that game...
Exactly 0 reasons.
Yeah. Well, I think he missed 2 free throws twice in that game.
If a Thunder player ever decided that, or had to sit out because they were conditioned, not Chet sitting out because of, like, injury, but, like, if they had to sit out because of they just weren't conditioned right, I'd be questioning the culture we have built.
Well, that's the thing with New Orleans. They have, like, a decent path to relevancy. They just had a bad break this year with all the injuries and just bad luck with some of the scheduling breaks. But they're also not forming the habits that, you know, obviously it's easy to go off of Oklahoma City, but, like, even when we were losing, like, you could tell there was defense being played. There was, like, thoughts of competent basketball. It just, the talent wasn't there yet. But the like, I mean, Mark probably has like 6,000 Markisms about how that was setting the foundation for what we see now. And New Orleans does not have that. So I don't know. I feel like they're going to have to do like a hard reset. And like, even if they got Cooper Flag, they're going to have to probably move on from Zion.
100%.
Yeah, you need a clean start.
I want you to remember what I said when Zion first came in the league.
Said bust.
I thought he was going to be a bust.
So far, you're looking like a fortune teller.
So far.
I think the key thing in that, it was Chet's second game back, as I said. He started to look like he was trying to be a bit more assertive on the offensive end. Not that, I mean, it might be 20 games, and it might not be this year that we get the Chet that we saw before the injury, just because he had worked all summer up to that. But like, as long as you get flashes over periods of time, his defensive impact alone is worth it. But he had 12 points, 6 rebounds. He also had 5 blocks and a steal in the second game back.
Pretty impressive defensively.
Like, that team went against us in the first round last year. Chet was blocking everything. It's like, well, let's try it this year. I know he's coming off a broken hip, but let's try it.
Let's test him at the rim again.
But yeah, I mean, outside of that, we saw the normal starting five with Dort, Shea, Hartenstein, Chet, and Dub. Some spacing things I think can kind of be worked through, but outside of that, it wasn't. Again, it wasn't a game you could really take a lot away from. Outside of it was just good seeing the whole team out there.
No, and I think that was the best part, was just like seeing the whole team out there and knowing this was kind of what have we been working towards this whole season. But I don't think we're going to take I'm personally not going to take much away from these first like 10 games Chet's back.
Yeah, it's going to be like 4 or 5 games after the All-Star break that it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, where do we actually need to tinker? Not that we have to decide that. There are smarter people in that building. But we can podcast about it, and we will. But moving on to the next game, last night, the Thunder beat the Miami Heat 115-101 in a game the team was down by 21 points in the first half.
Slept the first 3 quarters.
It was tough. It was like, I wasn't ever, we'll get into tonight's game after this, but I never felt like they weren't going to win the Heat game.
I didn't believe. At one point, I turned to my wife and said, hey, I need them to get it under 10 for me to believe. I don't know why. It felt like Bam could do no wrong, and he was rebounding like crazy, and then Aaron Wiggins was being the killer he was in Golden State. So Andrew, yeah. Aaron Wiggins also played well.
Well, he actually started last night. Chet sat this game, and I think a big key of that was Chet's from Minnesota, and so it wouldn't shock me that he was like, okay, let me go play in front of friends and family if I can.
I have to choose between the two. Because I'm sure Chet's the kind of guy that wants to play every game, but if he had to choose between playing in Minnesota or playing against the Heat, he would probably choose to play in Minnesota because he doesn't get to do that. But 2 times a year.
And it kind of sucks to podcast about this game now, because if we had podcasted last night, the vibe would have been very different, because the Thunder just lost to the Wolves, and probably the worst game we played this year.
No.
But last night's game was, one, some historical stuff for you. The Thunder went on a 24-0 run in the fourth quarter. And
has a team ever done that before?
Teams have done that before. I don't have the exact number, but it's
really?
It was the longest run by one team in a game this year in the NBA.
This year, okay, that's a stat I saw.
But it's been a while. Like, I'd have to go back and look at how long it's been, but it had been many years since not that run specifically. Not to bring up the Dallas Mavericks in every podcast, but they went on a 30-0 run against us last year and lost. In a December basketball game that meant nothing. But so I know obviously there's been bigger.
Until we beat them in a series.
If they get there. But it was like, thinking back on it, I think that Shea was great. Shea had 32, 5, and 9. I think
big
Dub played well.
Big shot.
I tweeted out last night, Shea's probably the best player in the NBA at like sensing the moment and finding his shot that he feels the most comfortable with, that he knows will just amplify that even more. because we tied the game at 93-93, and Shea was like, okay, time for the step back, and he had a little hezzy step back three, and the place erupted, and I turned to my wife during the game when he hit that, and I said, this game's over, and there were still 7 minutes left. Because one, the Heat don't care as much anymore. Like, Spoelstra's still a great coach. Bam was playing well. But you're at home. The Thunder were playing great. Shots were falling. And Dort, I'll get into this in a second, but Dort just shut Tyler Hero out. He had no points in the fourth quarter.
Right.
All-star Tyler Hero. But although they played great, I think what the two people that I took as the unsung heroes of the night. One, I mentioned Lou Dort. When Lou Dort is playing basketball and not thinking, he's shooting. If he hit 3 threes in a game, I'm like, okay, the Thunder won. And I'm gonna say that and look at the stats and see that he hit 3 tonight. I don't know. We'll see.
I'll look. Let me look.
But when he's disruptive on the defensive end, taking their best player out of it, some of that is determined by how ticky-tacky the officiating is, which they kind of let him play a bit in the second half. The first half, they were calling everything.
Yeah.
But when he's able to create disruption, chaos, take out their best player, he's usually one of the ones, too, that I feel like big rebounds he goes and gets as a guard. Just because he's so physical, it can kind of force his way in there. And then offensively, when he's able to space the floor and you have arguably the best on-ball defender in the league, also shooting 40+% from 3 consistently, it changes everything. The spacing changes. Shea can do whatever he wants. And I just feel like there's been we talked about his big game Lou. He had 30 points in his first game 7 in the bubble. I remember him playing well last year against Dallas. He shot a lot more because Dallas was funneling the ball to him, trying to get it out of Shea's hands, and no one else was hitting shots. But Dort plays for big moments, and that tends to be when he plays his best. And that was him in the fourth quarter last night. And he's never talked about in terms of, Shea and Dub got recognized for going to the All-Star game. Cason Wallace is going as he was selected as a rising star. He's not going. He's still out. Dort didn't get any of those accolades. He didn't make it into the Rising Stars Challenge either year. But he just plays big in big moments. And as big of a moment a Wednesday night game can be against the Miami Heat, he delivered. And then secondly, Mark Daignault last night, I thought coached just a phenomenal basketball game.
Wow, because let's give 3 claps to Mark. I don't think you should clap on the podcast, man. That was bad podcasting.
Yeah, you told me to. But what Mark did last night, he tinkered a bit with the rotations, and he said this post-game is my sole purpose in the game, if needed, is to try to generate a spark somewhere, whether that be to maintain a run, create one, whatever it is. Yeah, last night, Shea typically plays the whole third quarter and then sits the first 4 or 5 minutes of the fourth, and that's when we say, it's a typical Jada fourth quarter takeover. Was a big deal last year.
Right.
And he's starting to get back to that. But usually it's Shea the whole third and Dub half the third, half the fourth, basically. One, Shea was in a bit of foul trouble. He had 4 fouls early in the third quarter. And Dub started playing really well. And it was still it wasn't 21. The game was played at 10-13 for a lot of the third quarter. But as every single time it got pushed to 12, 13, 14, Dub, for some reason, it was always him that came down and hit a little midi, pull up from the free throw line or whatever, just to even if they hit a 3, he'd at least go get a bucket immediately after.
Uh-huh.
So he was in a great flow, and Shea was in foul trouble. So Mark flipped their minutes, and Dub went the whole third quarter, and Shea, they do it with Dub too. Sometimes the last 30 seconds to a minute, they'll bring both of them back. But then Shea played the whole fourth quarter. One, it's brilliant because usually the other team's star, it's a case-by-case basis because every team has different rotations and things like that. Shea was able to come in and go up against their second unit in the fourth quarter. and the team around it, like Kenrich hit big shots, Isaiah hit big shots. Threes were coming from everywhere.
Right.
And so Mark making that little adjustment, I think, is a huge reason we won that game. And so I'm like, not that it matters. Again, it's a Wednesday night game, 2 days before the All-Star break. But that was just like, I was like, man, I'm sure happy he's our coach.
Right. 100%. Yeah. I thought, it was like, so if you want to talk about tonight's game versus last night's game, we played with a lot of force, and we didn't get off to the best start last night against the Heat. 3 quarters, kind of sleptwalk, right? And then tonight we sleptwalked through the whole game. We were able to
Never
find
woke
that
up.
switch. We never found that switch tonight. But I thought Mark, like you said, Mark played a good game. I like, one of my favorite things to notice is like rotations, like when Chet comes back in, when Shea comes back in, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I find those fun things to track. And it's a good sense of how Mark thinks the game is going. Like if he needs, like you said, he needs a spark or he needs something like that, he can make those adjustments and provide a spark like he did against the Heat game. Now, we didn't see much of an adjustment tonight versus
It was
the
hard to make an
Timberwolves.
adjustment tonight. I mean, nothing felt like it was good tonight. Like every shot that should have gone in. I mean, Lou Dort shot a 3 in the second half that it rolled around the rim 3 times.
Yeah.
From 3 and fell out. And it was like, yeah, it's just not our night.
At one point, Shea was 1 for 11.
Yeah. And
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was 1 for 11.
And that doesn't happen often. And I'll preface all this by saying I was at a dinner tonight, so I didn't get to watch the first half. And the whole time I was like, well, they're going to flip a switch, and they do it every game. And I got back. They cut it to, 4 or 6 in the third quarter.
No, they tied it.
Yeah, tied it.
And I thought, all right, this is the time
over.
we take it over. Yeah.
It was still over, just not in the Thunder's way, Thunder's
Yeah.
direction. Because you couldn't build on that.
Which was totally different from, like you said, when we got up on the Heat, it was like, all right, we won. Like it was like automatic. Like I felt like we won that game, and just tonight, the credit to the Timberwolves, they brought a lot of effort, they brought a lot of force onto the court, and made it really difficult for us to do anything on the offensive end.
I mean, it was a Timberwolves team that Rudy Gobert was a late scratch. Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo are hurt. Luke Garza and Terrence Shannon are going off. It was like the most obvious, like these guys have like a week off after this. Like obviously they'll be in the All-Star festivities, some of them. But it's like, just get us to the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Like, it was not it was like this team needs a break. They played 5 games in 7 nights.
Yes. Which is also something that won't happen in the playoffs. Those games will be a lot more spaced out, so you have all this rest. But
it's the most games allowed in a 7-game span. Obviously, I mean,
did you notice that it was a lot of teams that played back-to-backs?
Yeah, every team in the NBA was played last night.
Yeah. I felt like a lot of teams.
It's just a weird scheduling quirk, but
yeah, a lot of teams played back-to-backs. Like the Timberwolves played back-to-back tonight. The Heat played. The Mavericks played a back-to-back. I mean, I guess every team that played tonight played back-to-back, which is just like, why would you do that right before the All-Star break?
I mean, they'll probably point to something that has to do with the condensed schedule based off of the NBA Cup pushing everything back and not being able to schedule as many games because they don't know who's playing when or who during that fake tournament. But it's weird too. We come out of the break, and I think we mentioned on the last podcast, we play the Timberwolves 2 of the first 3 games. We play at Utah, and then at Minnesota, and then home against Minnesota.
Yeah.
And then we don't play them again the rest of the year.
Yeah, but we do that for 2 teams. Don't we play the Lakers 2 days in a row? And
2 days in a row.
And the Nuggets 2 days in a row?
Yeah, and I bet we probably are missing 1 or 2, but it's just a scheduling thing. I'm sure it has to do with like maybe trying to minimize travel or something. I mean, like the Lakers one and the Nuggets back to back are both in Oklahoma City. Like both games of those two are in Oklahoma City. This one is we're at Minnesota and then home against Minnesota the next game. So I've seen that some of the time, but it's weird. I mean, all this to say, the Thunder are 44-10 at the All-Star break. I really was kind of hoping that they'd somehow sneak in with single-digit wins.
Single-digit losses.
Yeah, not single-digit wins. That would be, I don't know, we'd have this podcast if they had single-digit wins
trying to capture the flag.
Yeah.
Cooper flag, the Duke All-Star.
But, I mean, 44-10. I mean, I thought about this while I was talking about the Heat game. The Pelicans game on Monday, the Thunder made 27 threes and set a franchise record for most threes in a game.
The fifth most in NBA history.
Yeah, like it's one of those, like, all the threes went in that game. The threes went in a timely manner against the Heat. And then tonight, you know, I'll look up what we shot overall, but it was abysmal. Like, man, every big shot that had, like, there are certain threes that you can't actually, like, put a number on this, but it just feels like they're more important. Like, if it's just like a basic possession and we miss a three, whatever, there's ones that have much more consequence when it comes to momentum.
Right.
And we hit every one against the Pelicans, regardless of how important it was. The Heat, it feels like we hit every single momentum shot. And then tonight, especially after tying it, it was like, nope, that's it. We're done. Like, we're out of juice.
It was like Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
Yeah.
Tonight was Papa Bear, where we made no threes. We were 24%, 7 out of 29. The Timberwolves also shot 11 more times than we did. And they out-rebounded us by a ton. I mean, it felt like for forever we could not get a defensive rebound, and they just somehow came up with the ball. And then one of their bench players would make a turnaround fadeaway shot. And I was like, all right, well.
I mean, like, Terrence Shannon, he was a good player at Tech in Illinois. His career high going into tonight was 11 points, and that was last night's game for the Timberwolves. He had 13 in the first half.
Yeah.
Like, just storylines that just, like, are like, okay, it's the NBA. It's one of 82, as Mark always says. You just kind of have to tip your cap and move on to the next one.
These guys get paid to play basketball too. They are really, really good. It's I know we might have talked about this in the past, but like Brian Scalabrine, he's always said that he's a lot closer to LeBron than you are to him. And so it's like these guys, oh yeah, these guys at any point can go score 40 points. Jeff Teague was talking about something on his podcast, and he was like, the guys at the end of the bench scored 40 in high school, averaged 40 in high school. They averaged 20 in college. Like, these guys
they were McDonald's All-Americans, like top draft picks. Like,
they're incredible players, but they just they're just guys who are at the upper echelon. So at any point, these guys can go off and have really good games, and you just tip their cap, like you said, and move on.
Yeah, I mean,
after the All-Star break.
I mean, the big one tonight, too, like, Ant was fine. He had 23. He was 3 of 12 from 3, whatever. 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Filled up the stat line. Naz Reid had 27 and 13. And you could argue the Timberwolves look and play better when Naz is the sole center, and he's not trying to also work in with Rudy Gobert.
I was thinking the same thing. They looked a lot better without Rudy Gobert and without Julius Randle.
Yeah, well, the Timberwolves have been a mess this year. They're like, let's see, they're currently fighting to stay in the play-in, which, I mean, they're 7th. I say stay in the play-in, but they're 6 games over 500. They're 16 and 13 at home, which good teams don't lose a lot at home. Like, the Thunder are 25 and 3 currently, which I know is a bit skewed because of the historical pace that the Thunder are currently on.
2 of those are to Dallas, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
But, like, the Grizzlies have lost 6 games at home. Like, the top 5 teams have lost single digits at home. And I don't know, just the Wolves had a great year last year. and they blew it up for some reason. Because for some the reason is financial implications down the road when they're having to pay.
They didn't want to pay Karl Anthony Towns.
Well, they should have paid him and traded Gobert, but they'd already made that bed, so they'd sleep in it. But I mean, we play them, like I said, the second and third game out of the break, so that'll be very, very interesting basketball to watch. Unfortunately, we can't seem to buck the trend. We have a winning record, but it always feels like these prime time national broadcast games. We just are like, eh.
That was my biggest takeaway. It's like, damn, people are gonna look and be like, damn, He's your MVP. I was like, damn.
I'm gonna need the playoff games to be broadcasted on FanDuel Sports. NBA Finals,
totally
FanDuel
agree.
Sports.
I totally agree.
Yeah, you gotta subscribe to that to have any chance of watching the Thunder win the championship this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a quick little recap for you of the last 3 games.
I have a few questions.
Yeah, lay it on me.
So, what's your overall opinion as we sit 43-10 going into the All-Star break?
44-10.
44-10 going into the All-Star break.
If I ever complain about a team being 44-10 going into the All-Star break, you can slap me in the face as hard as you want.
Deal.
That's my general thought. Was that your, just what is your general vibe of the?
No, yeah, that was my question. But a more specific question, how do you feel like Chet's folding in right now? I feel like he is trying to swim upstream. He just he's not there catching the ball he's slipping a lot. There's a lot of
he's still getting his feet under him. I mean, he played his 3rd game of the year tonight, or I say that 3rd game since he broke his hip.
It's like a new year.
It is a new year technically.
Yeah.
But one, we talked about it before, this week off is huge, I think, especially trying not just for rest, but going through practice and implementing him and going back and looking at film to seeing what's worked and where he's kind of, I wouldn't say slacked off or anything, just where we need him to take the next steps back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely it's not smooth, which it's as a Thunder fan and what we have watched so far this year, we have watched arguably the greatest regular season basketball team, not including record, but in terms of net rating going into tonight, the Thunder had the #1 net rating in the history of the NBA.
Right.
And most of that they played 10 games with Chet. And so we talked about it before the Grizzlies game last week, but it was Chet came back for the Friday night game against Toronto. And then Saturday against the Grizzlies, that game almost felt more normal because that was the lineup that we've seen all year and the rotations. And we had mainly just Hartenstein and Jay Will, doing what he can for 12, 15 minutes as a backup big. And then seeing how the team works with the starting lineup and the double bigs and everything, it was always going to take growing pains, and we are in those growing pains.
Right.
As a 44-10 basketball team.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to talk about it like this, but I always thought, all right, I was talking to my wife again, and I said, I think I'm more okay with losing when Chet's in the lineup than I am without Chet, because like you said, it's a lineup we've seen all year. It's a lineup that we had 16 game or 15 game winning streak. It's a lineup that got us to 44-10. So I'm more okay with seeing the bumps and bruises when Chet plays, just because we're trying to refold him in rather than when he's not playing. Which I don't know after the break how much he won't play. I'm sure he'll play probably every game after the break. But
it should, outside of spare, here and there, if we have a random back-to-back or I don't know the scheduling quirks right now for after the All-Star break. That's kind of my homework for the over the weekend and over the All-Star break in terms of, do we have any more 5 and 7s or any of these long stretches of games without breaks? But yeah, the hope is that he's kind of back in terms of conditioning post All-Star break, and we're able to kind of hit the ground running to see what this team can do for the remaining 33 games or no? We played 54.
We've played 54 games.
Is it 28? Wow, man, it's late. I need to be better at math.
I think it's 23.
Yeah, because now that I think
it's 29.
it's 28.
28. Well, I can't do
28.
math either.
82
Sorry.
minus 54 is 28.
Sorry, Mom and Dad. I didn't listen in school.
Yeah. My job is to count numbers, so probably don't want to send it to the boss, But there's just too many positives to be bummed out. It sucks that we're going into the All-Star break off of a loss, but
I like to think that this team will turn this into a positive. I know they always say like they're really good at talking coach speak, where they're like, every learning opportunity or every loss is a learning opportunity. We're always 0-0. It's 182. They say all the right things, but I think this team can actually take what they say and apply it. I really do, especially with a leader like Shea and everyone kind of mimicking how hard of a worker he is, how dedicated he is to his craft, and how consistent he is. I think it's something that actually happens when they take these losses and turn them into lessons.
Well, it's almost like if you're a betting man or like an outside person between the Timberwolves and the Thunder, if you're not one of the fans of these two teams, you see a 44-10 Thunder team lose to a 31-25 Timberwolves team the night before the All-Star break. The Thunder and Wolves played two more times, like right out of the All-Star break. The thought is the Thunder should slack them. Like if they play like they have all year and do what they've done. Now, obviously, implementing Chet and things like that, we'll see how it looks post All-Star break. But this team has always responded, and it wouldn't shock me if we go and sweep those two games. Call me biased, whatever, but yeah, it's an expectation. I expect the Thunder to win every game now, and it's not even that. They're on pace for over 65 wins.
Right. I think everyone Vegas expects them to win all the games, I'm assuming. I actually don't know that. So
I don't even have to look it up. I think that's right. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Unless they really fall in love with Luka come April. Which host the Lakers.
Let's talk about your initial feelings of two teams.
Okay.
The Lakers.
You want me to say that now?
Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. The Lakers.
They're irrelevant this year.
They had a really good game against Utah, Ben.
They were going to win the championship.
I know. Shannon Sharp got on and said, "Give us Oklahoma City in the second round."
No, in the finals. He was like, if we get to the finals, it's like OKC's not going to be able to guard this team. I was like, you have not watched a second of Thunder basketball.
It's turned into this thing where talking heads have just decided that Oklahoma City is not up for it. They can't do it. They've decided that Oklahoma City is not standing in their way.
Too young. They don't know how to win.
Right.
Yada, yada, yada.
It's crazy.
It happens to every team that's up and coming where you don't trust them until they do it. And I don't blame them for that.
No. I think there's definitely, they lost last year to Dallas, so I think there is some precedent. But it feels a little bit like when Charles Barkley said that the Warriors couldn't win a championship with jump shooting.
And then they became one of the best dynasties of all time.
Right.
Off of that. And now the whole NBA is a jump shooting league because of those teams.
Yeah. Way to go, Charles Barkley.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Barkley. But yeah, I don't know. I just think the Lakers are irrelevant. They don't have as it currently stands, we could potentially play them in round 2. And there's a good chance that they stay in that 4-5. Right now, they'd play the Rockets, who have just not been good recently. They got killed by the Warriors tonight.
They're 3-7 in their last 10.
Yeah. After they were in second, they were the second seed 10 games ago.
And they got down to 5 games back.
Yeah. Yeah. It was Houston, they were getting praise, they deserved it, and then Fred VanVleet got hurt, and they don't know how to finish basketball games. But if the Rockets and Lakers play, I don't know who wins that series necessarily, but we would play the Lakers in round 2 if we got out of the 1-8 matchup.
So you think the Lakers would win?
I'm saying if the Lakers won.
If we played the Lakers.
If we played them. And I just like outside of like, yes, it would be scary because Luka and LeBron, but eventually it'd just be like, okay, hey Lou Dort, hey J Dub, hey Case and Walls, go take
Alex
those two out of
Caruso.
it. I don't give a rat's ass about anyone else on that team. Like there are good players, but not ones that are going to go win you a playoff series by yourself. And this might come back to bite me because it's basically what the Thunder did last year, and PJ Washington went and won a series.
Clip it, Laker fans. Clip it.
Yeah, I'm going to be all over Instagram and Twitter and X tonight after this podcast, or I guess tomorrow after this podcast drops. But they don't scare me. They don't have, like, there's no rim protection outside of LeBron and Jackson Hayes. They did sign Alex Len, but whatever. Like, we saw against New Orleans that whenever, well, really not even just New Orleans, like any game there's not a legit shot blocker in the game, Shea will walk to 35 points.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're shooting well around him, it's a wrap because of how this team defends consistently, besides tonight. So it's just Lakers are fine. Like, they'll make the playoffs. It would be pushed big time. Any Lakers series is going to be on every prime time. Like, it's going to be what all the talking heads are talking about. Yeah. But I'm not scared of them this year. They need another big.
All right. Then Golden State with the Jimmy Butler acquisition.
They look better. Jimmy's a dog. He's a 35-year-old dog. The Warriors are fine. I think they're better because of this, and that's not saying a lot. Jimmy's a really good player. And I think he fits that system really well because even though he comes across as like a bit crazy and maybe selfish, especially after how things ended in Miami, he fits in most systems because of how high his basketball IQ is. He can
plays.
Yeah, like he can handle, he can pass, he shoots well enough, and he always tends to make the right basketball play. And in that system with Steph, it's not what we knew, in the dynasty years, but it's still, some semblance of that. He fits in. I still would take the Thunder in like 5 games.
Yeah, I feel like much like the Lakers, their prominence has been over talked by ESPN and things like that. Like,
yeah, it's just because of a name.
Right.
And Andrew Schleck said this on one of his podcasts on Down to Dunk. And it's like all of these teams and players, especially as like the next generation comes along, you're scared of the name until you actually play them.
Mm-hmm.
Like Steph's a big name. LeBron's a big name. Kyrie, if we played the Mavs, big name. But then you get into it and it's like, okay, if the Thunder are as good as we think they are, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And you take care of business.
You're right. I'm afraid of the name. I feel like a small, I don't want to say small market, but you feel like the little brother. And it's just like, you have to, at some point, the little brother grows up and beats the big brother. And they become, the best kind of thing. So,
yeah.
But until it happens, I'm going to be pretty wary about it just because I'm trying to protect my feelings.
That's
my
fair.
Happiness.
But with how this team has played now, anything less than a finals appearance feels like a letdown. So
yes,
it's kind of like, you get into the playoffs, and if they get to the finals, it's cake. Anything less than that, I will be bummed until next season.
Yeah. And I thought when Chet went down, those sort of expectations were going to kind of fall off of the Thunder.
False.
I know, because they ended up being incredible.
Better. Not better, but as
incredible.
Good.
So
yeah.
The Thunder now sit atop of the Western Conference by 8 games in front of Memphis at the number 2 spot. Dallas is number 3. 8.5 games behind. Denver's number 3 at 8.5 games behind. Houston, who's lost a ton of games recently, is in the 4th place. LA both LA teams are 5-6, with the Lakers ahead at 5, Clippers at 6. Minnesota, Dallas, Sacramento, and the Golden State Warriors round out the top 10 in the Western Conference going into All-Star break.
And I think you can pencil in those 10 as the 10 that make the playoffs.
Yeah, because it feels like Phoenix is sort of done. They have the hardest strength of schedule left, and they are a game and a half out of 10th place. San Antonio, the Fox experiment has not gone like they had hoped.
Which is fine for this year. Like, they don't care about this year.
Right.
But, yes, for this year, it hasn't been what would get them into the play-in.
And then the last 3 teams are trying to lose all their games so they can have the number 1 pick.
Except the Trailblazers, man. They won 9 in a row like a week ago.
I do remember that, yeah.
Bad stuff by the franchise.
Yeah. The Eastern Conference, you have Cleveland, Boston, New York, Pacers, Milwaukee, Detroit. I'm more excited for the Eastern playoffs just because I just want to. It doesn't affect me who moves on until the finals, So we'll see after the All-Star break. There's 28 games, like we sort of discussed with our math. So we'll see. Really good math. So we'll see kind of where this team can go. Everything from, they're going to win games. They're going to lose more games before the playoffs. And in the playoffs, they'll probably lose some games. So the world...
Been a heck of a ride, and it's just going to get better from here.
That's right. We are not Chicken Little. The world is not falling on top of our heads. The sky is not falling.
Enjoy SGA and Dub in the All-Star game.
Enjoy them after the All-Star game. We have 3 generational talents on our team. Generational is a big word, but Chet and SGA and J-Dubs are all All-Stars on a team, a young team that loves to play basketball together. You should love and enjoy watching them.
Agreed with that. And before we get out of here, go over to X. Give us a follow on there. We tweet during the games, and we'll be tweeting out asking for questions and things like that to answer on the pod. So give us a follow over there at Ball Talk Pod, okay? And yeah, we got some stuff rolling out for the All-Star break next week. And then, like we said, we're hitting the ground running with post All-Star break into the playoffs.
Yep, that's right. Big playoff time. Playoffs are right around the corner.
Yep. Thunder up, baby. We will talk to y'all next time.
See ya.
All night long. Party, party, we like to party, party, party all night long. Party, party, we like to party, party, party.